Welcome to our monthly meeting with the Harwich Conservation Trust. Matt Cannon, the the Director of Outreach Coordinator, and Michael Lack, the Executive Director. And we're going to start with box turtles.
Yes, yeah,
What are we going to do? Talk about box turtle.
well, thanks for having us again, and thanks to everybody here at Channel 18, staff and volunteers. It's a wonderful resource here in town, so thank you for all your work, and thanks for having us again. Box turtles,
Yes.
people might be seeing them in their travels, or maybe on the bike path, crossing the bike path, or crossing local roads, or even in their yards, or out and about on walks on different conservation lands. There's a great photo of a box turtle. You see that domed shell, kind of a little bit bigger than a grapefruit. Can be.
Is it really that big?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought they were little white ones. No.
Well, when they're hatchlings, yeah, they're certainly much smaller. A little bit bigger than maybe a Kennedy half dollar. But there's a good shot of a box turtle laying eggs. See the characteristic orange, yellow, black, sort of sun-dappled markings on the carapace or the top shell, and under the chin there and on the legs. That orange-yellow pattern changes really from turtle to turtle. Every turtle has sort of a unique patterning, but it has those that primary mix of colors: orange, yellowish, black mixture. Beautiful turtle, rare species in Massachusetts. Considered a species of special concern. They're long-lived.
Yes, I know they live forever.
They can supposedly live anywhere from 80 to 100 years.
Yes.
But some of their most difficult challenges include habitat loss, right? And also road mortality. When they're crossing these roads, they really don't have a chance against vehicles moving 40 to 50 miles per hour. And so what we're doing is we're spreading the word to our supporters, letting them know that we'd like to hear from them if they see a turtle. And I'll let Matt explain more why and what we're going to do with that information.
So because it is a species of special concern, the state really wants to know where they're located, if they're alive or dead. So people have given us information where they've seen them. And I can either fill out the paperwork for you, or I can lead you to the state's online database, which is pretty easy to fill out. And that will just inform the state on what's happening with these numbers, because we really don't know. They rely on volunteer and citizens to report these.
Mm-hmm. It's the same, pretty much the same thing that you've been saying. That they're endangered species in a sense.
Yeah, they're a rare species, and what we're asking people to do is just take a photo. Everybody has these phones with those, the camera capability usually.
That's right.
Right.
Our phone has everything now.
Yeah. Take a photo of the turtle, email it to us to Matt's email address, hctmattcannon@gmail.com, or you can log onto our website and contact us. Website harwichconservationtrust.org. But these turtles, they need all the help they can get, and if we can discover where they are in the environment around us, then we can relay that information to the state, and they can better map population distribution.
Now, what is their environment, or do they have one?
Sure, they're basically a terrestrial turtle, inhabiting the uplands, pine oak uplands, but also you'll find them in meadows. You'll find them on habitat edges near wetlands as well. We find them on some of our conservation destinations, especially this time of year, when they're moving around a little bit more. They're in search of dates and mates to start their life.
Family.
That's right, and then the female will lay her eggs over the next few weeks, and then they'll hatch out September, October, and begin again. Now,
of all the eggs she lays, how many become turtles?
Well, that's a really good question. We'd have to get back to you on that, but I will tell you, generally speaking, because of egg predation, nest predation, you've got raccoons out there digging up nests, and other mammals taking an interest in these these egg delicacies to them. You know, you've got a lot of nests disappearing that way, and then you've got the hatchlings, you know, being a little bit vulnerable in their early life stages until they get to this adult stage, where they can really close up their shell and become a box.
Yes.
Their plastron or lower shell is hinged, so they can actually retract their legs and head back into their shell and tail and close up that lower part of the shell and really have a little sort of protective dome around themselves. Still, that doesn't help against a car that's driving
No.
along the road or you know, dangers such as that. So, and it's really a beautiful beautiful turtle,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
and so we want to keep them around as long as possible. They have a really small actual home range.
Yeah.
They
I
don't.
would think so.
Yeah,
They move very slowly.
they move very slowly, and not only that, but their home range, you know, can sometimes average on an acre or so. But then they'll travel farther afield when they're in search of mates, and that's when you see them crossing the road. And when you see them crossing the road, you want to tell them what people are supposed to do?
Yeah, well, especially after a warm rain this time of year, they're more active. But if you see them, they're hard to see because they're usually a little smaller than a giant snapping turtle. If you can, pull off to the side of the road.
If it's safe.
If it's safe, and try to help it in the direction that it's moving. If you move it back where it came from, it's still going to keep going the same way it wanted to go. So if you could, if it's safe, pull off the road and just move it to where it wants to go.
And as tempting as it may seem to take this little turtle home, don't do it, because what happens is they're going to want to desperately get back to wherever their home range was. So if you take them out of that environment where they're used to being, where they were essentially hatched from their own egg and nest many moons ago, they're going to try their darndest to get all the way back. That means they're going to be crossing other roads and traveling a much farther distance than they're used to. So we want to leave them basically where they are, and like Matt said, if they're crossing a road, if you can pull off safety, personal safety first, of course, you know, just help them around, help them along to the other side, and then be on your way.
Okay. Now, I would gather that many of these roads are sort of side roads, as we would call them.
Some of them, but you know,
Are they main highways?
so they travel. They'll cross any type of road if they can, if they're in the area. I mean, I've seen them trying to cross some pretty busy roads. Some of our main roads, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And of course, I've seen them trying to cross the bike trail, and it's a little easier, of course, and some of the side roads as well. So you never know where they're going to pop up. So keep a lookout.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody look out for box turtles.
Yeah.
And next, I guess, on our list is invasive plants.
Invasive plants, yeah. We're out there trying to enhance wildlife habitats, and invasive plants are one of our challenges. But yeah, Matt's been out there most recently, even this week.
This week we had a great school group, Lighthouse Charter School, and there was a dense stand of Japanese knotweed. And I don't know if, I'm sure you've all seen it out there. I don't know if you know what it looks like. We have a few pictures coming up, but it just totally takes over. It spreads through its roots, the rhizomes. There's just a good picture of how advantageous it is. It'll find that little spot. It probably came from under the fence next door and spread through its roots and just shot up through someone's patio. So it's highly invasive, and it can create a monoculture. There's another good one. You probably have seen it, alternating leaves, and it does look like bamboo. And that was one of the reasons why it first spread, is I think people probably planted it
As an ornamental.
As an ornamental, which is how many of our invasives come here. And that's just to, just to show you how high it can really grow and how fast. And look how dense it is. There's no light getting down there.
Right.
There's no native plants growing.
Now, this is one type of invasive
That's
plant?
right, Japanese knotweed.
Japanese knotweed.
And so a lot of this is caused by disturbance to the soil. So on some of our properties that have been disturbed, or even your home, this plant will be advantageous and take over wherever it can. That's the property we worked at the other day. You can see how dense that is. And I was getting back to the monoculture idea. If you don't see any other trees or native plants there, so it actually diminishes the habitat value when you have one plant that takes over, and it's more prone to disease.
And so they're not a good thing to have in your property?
No, this type of plant, as
You want to get rid of it.
right,
Yeah.
as Matt's been describing, is can grow up to the 10 feet high or
Yeah.
more in this dense shrub structure and basically shade all sunlight out from reaching the ground,
Wow.
which then prevents native plants from growing. So, it's and then of course if you don't have the native plant community and diversity, you've got less wildlife. So when you've got these Japanese knotweed colonies, populations, you've got a lot less plant and animal diversity. And it's highly drought tolerant and resistant to, or rather shade tolerant, full sun. It can grow in a variety of conditions. And that's why it proliferates. And it's pretty hard to get rid of too.
Yeah, I've heard even some part of its roots have been found 3 to 5 feet down. So even if you try to rip it out by taking its roots, it still has the possibility to grow, and I'm sure it will.
Yeah,
I have never seen one of those things.
I bet you've seen them without even knowing it as you're traveling down the roads. Sometimes you'll see them along roadside shoulders, alongside guardrails, these dense pockets of Japanese knotweed. Actually, you know what? If you head down Gilbert Lane as you're heading towards Lothrop Ave, there's a bank of Japanese knotweed on the shoulder of Lothrop Ave there.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, just on the margin of upland between Lothrop Ave and the salt marsh.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's salt tolerant as well to a degree. I mean, this stuff can grow in a variety of conditions and
okay.
locations. Yeah. So when we find an earlier rooting population, a population that hasn't been there a long time, smaller plants, we try to jump on it and get it out as quick as possible.
Yes.
And then when you've got these populations that have been around a little longer, it takes more time. But we're doing our best. Yeah, that's just one of the invasive
One of the
species.
invasive.
Matt's going to talk about another one in a moment.
Yeah.
Bittersweet, maybe.
Yeah, Asiatic bittersweet. Same main reason why it got here. It was used as an ornamental. That one's a little more established, so I'm sure more of you have seen it choking out trees. I've seen, the actual vine can get about this big to choke out a tree. But you'll see those vines. You'll also see those red berries in the fall, which hang on. They stay a long time because the birds don't really prefer them. But after all the other food is gone, they will eat them, and they can spread everywhere. They are all over the Northeast.
Yeah.
And that one's a very tough invasive to get rid of as well. Even if you cut some of the vine, the root systems are massive. And if you ever pull them up, they're orange,
that's
and they
a
actually do have that bitter smell.
Now, can you really pull these? And what I'm trying to find out is a certain thing I have in mind. Can you really pull up the root, or are they so far down that you give up?
I've found the bittersweet roots to be closer to the surface
They are.
than the knotweed. And when
Oh,
you've got the smaller diameter vines, you can kind of pull them up and you can
But
pull the
there's
roots
a little
with
red
them.
berry on these.
After they've fruited, yeah. But and they like Matt said, they were originally probably brought here to the States. They originate, the native habitat is Eastern Asia. Oriental bittersweet is what it's called. And it's brought here as an ornamental in the 1800s. Because of those red orange berries, they look pretty. And some people use them as wreaths, but and then maybe toss them into the compost pile and they spread, and then birds pick up the seeds and take them further, and then it goes on and on. So we want to, again, try and jump on these early arriving bittersweet vines when we find them in our conservation lands and remove them, and then the populations that have been there longer, it just takes us a little bit longer to get them under control. Yeah.
I should also mention it's not just people who have planted them for ornamentals.
Right.
A lot of invasives have come over in ballasts of ships and over time, various methods. But it's also interesting to note that some of our native species here are invasive in China and Japan as well. So we're all battling a similar issue.
Right. Yeah.
Well, good luck with those.
Thanks. Yeah.
And the last topic we have now are walks. Is that right?
We've got some amazing walks this summer. In every season, we're very fortunate to have a group of volunteers who share their time and energy and knowledge of local habitats and history and wildlife. And we've just recently had a botany walk led by environmental reporter Rich Eldred, who writes for the Cape Codder. We had Pat Sarantis lead more of an exercise walk called More Walk, Less Talk in Bell's Neck. And just this week we have Donna Wood Eaton, who owns Cedar Spring Herb Farm, leading a wild medicinal plant walk, an edible plant walk at the Bank Street Bogs Nature Preserve. Amy Uzowski's leading a birds and butterflies walk at Thompson's Field. But
Birds and butterflies.
Birds and butterflies, yeah,
really.
yeah. You can find all these at our website, harwichconservationtrust.org, or you can print out this handy schedule and put it on your fridge. But coming up in July, we have a couple walks, one sponsored by HCT and the Cape Cod Bird Club. So it's going to be a birding walk at Bell's Neck on Saturday, July 11th. 7 a.m. for you early risers. That's when the birds are most visible in those hot months of summer, early in the day. Then on July 12th, the very next day, we have another botany walk, but at Coysbrook Woodlands off Lothrop Ave, again led by Rich Eldred. And we're back to birds on July 22nd, again in partnership with the Cape Cod Bird Club, this time at Bank Street Bogs Nature Preserve. And then July 30th, rounding out the July walks, we have a wild edible and medicinal plant walk at the Monomoy River Conservation Lands in East Harwich. So east to west, central Harwich, Harwich Port.
Birds are all over the place.
Yeah, we've got it covered. Or our walk leaders have it covered. So get out there and join them, and you can learn a thing or two on the way, meet some new people. It's a lot of fun. We ask people to reserve in advance. These are free walks,
Yes.
but we ask them to reserve in advance through email HCT. What have we done? HCT walks, as opposed to HCT events at gmail.com. So HCT walks at gmail.com, or you can email Matt or I, and that'd be fine too. But it's going to be fun. Yeah.
Well, it seems like you've got quite a program going, and so we wish you well with it.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe next month you can let us know how things went.
Great, Paul. Well, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
We look forward to seeing you again.
Very good.